All right, so Bitcoin, it's making headlines again.
Doesn't it always feel like?
Yeah, it does. It feels like every few months there's all this hype and everyone's talking about it again. But this time,
This time feels a little different.
it does feel different. This time there's some serious analysis backing it up. Like we're not just talking about, Reddit threads and Twitter hype.
Yeah, we're looking at
We're looking at some actual research.
factual, in-depth reports.
Specifically, we've got our hands on this report that dives into Bitcoin's potential, and especially with the possibility of a pro-crypto U.S. administration. Like, that could really shake things up.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So I guess what we're going to try to unpack in this deep dive together is whether all this optimism is warranted, like what's really driving it, and I guess most importantly for our listeners, how it could impact you.
Yeah, what does it mean for the average person?
Exactly. We're talking six-figure Bitcoin. We're talking about a potential shift in global finance, like the whole nine yards.
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's a lot of buzz. But what's different this time around is the confluence of factors. Everything seems to be lining up.
Yeah.
And the possibility of a pro-crypto administration in the U.S. is a huge one. This report really breaks down why.
Okay, so let's break it down. The analysis talks about policies like tax breaks for crypto,
That's right.
a more deregulated environment being positive for Bitcoin.
Of course.
But I think honestly what jumped out at me was the focus on regulatory clarity. It feels like the entire crypto world has been holding its breath, waiting for a clear set of rules from the U.S.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Made
been
for-
a major point of contention for years now.
For years.
Think about it this way. Without clear guidelines, big players like banks and institutions, they've been hesitant to really jump in.
They don't know what to expect.
It's like trying to build a house without knowing if the foundation is stable.
Yeah, you don't want the rug pulled out from under you.
Exactly. But a clear federal framework from the U.S., that could be that missing piece. And not just for the big guys. It could make it easier for everyone to access and use crypto.
So basically, it's like everyone's waiting for the U.S. to make the first move.
In a way, yeah. They have that kind of influence.
Okay, so that's the government side of things. But this analysis also dropped a pretty wild statistic. 70% of traditional financial institutions are apparently planning to invest in Bitcoin in the coming years.
It's a big number.
That's not just dipping a toe in the water. That's diving head first. What's going on there?
Well, that's where the idea of quiet accumulation comes in.
Quiet accumulation.
And it's more than just being sneaky institutions, especially the really big ones. They don't like to make a lot of noise when they're accumulating an asset.
Right. They don't want to tip their hand.
They want to build their position before the price gets driven up by the masses. Think of it like a whale quietly stockpiling krill before everyone else realizes there's a feast to be had.
So they're betting on Bitcoin before it hits the mainstream? That's pretty savvy.
It is. It's a classic strategy. And with potential regulatory clarity on the horizon, that quiet accumulation could turn into a full-blown feeding frenzy.
That's kind of scary.
Imagine a scenario where corporate treasuries, pension funds, even national reserves are holding Bitcoin.
Okay, hold on. National reserves. You're talking about countries stashing away Bitcoin like it's gold.
It sounds crazy,
It does sound a little crazy.
but it's a conversation that's happening.
Yeah.
Senator Lummis has been a vocal proponent of this idea.
Really?
And get this, it's not entirely theoretical.
Oh.
Some states, like Texas and Wyoming, they're already holding Bitcoin in their reserves.
Wow. So they're already doing it.
They're dipping their toes in.
Yeah.
They're showing that this concept, as radical as it might sound, it can actually work. Now imagine, the U.S., the world's biggest economy, follows suit. The ripple effects would be enormous, potentially triggering a global domino effect.
Oh, yeah.
Other countries might start adding Bitcoin to their reserves, driving up demand and legitimacy like we've never seen before.
So we've got potential government support, we've got these institutional players piling in, and now the possibility of Bitcoin becoming a global reserve asset. Is this the start of some crypto revolution?
It certainly feels that way, but
It feels like things are moving fast.
it does. But before we get too carried away, we need to talk about the current state of regulation.
Right.
Right now, it's a patchwork quilt of different rules across different jurisdictions.
Yeah.
It's a big hurdle for the crypto industry as a whole.
It's been a headache for everyone,
Yeah.
not just the institutions.
Not just the big guys.
So what could change that?
That's where the U.S. comes in again. If they establish a clear and supportive regulatory framework, it could set a global standard. Think of it like setting the rules for a new game. Everyone wants to know how to play, and the U.S. has the clout to define those rules.
So the U.S. could actually pave the way for a more unified global crypto landscape.
It's definitely within the realm of possibility. This could encourage other countries to adopt similar frameworks,
Right.
leading to more regulatory alignment and making it much easier for crypto to operate across borders.
That would be huge. But let's be real. There are always going to be some regional differences, right? Not everyone will be on board with the same playbook.
Of course, different countries have different financial systems, different priorities, different approaches. Expecting complete uniformity would be naive,
Hmm.
but even a move towards greater alignment would be a massive step forward.
All right. So we've got this potential pro-crypto government. We've got institutions secretly hoarding Bitcoin and the possibility of it becoming a global reserve asset. It's all very exciting. But there's one big scary word we haven't talked about yet. Volatility.
Ah, yes. The infamous crypto roller coaster. It's the elephant in the room that everyone wants to ignore, but it's something any potential investor needs to understand.
So how do we make sense of this volatility? Is it just chaos, or is there some rhyme or reason to these wild price swings?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Hmm.
But this report has an interesting take on it. They argue that volatility is more of a challenge for short-term investors than for those in it for the long haul.
So it's all about perspective and time horizons.
Precisely. Think of it this way. Volatility is the price you pay for the potential for those massive gains everyone's chasing.
Okay, that makes sense. But I bet our listeners are dying to know, how high could Bitcoin go? Everyone wants to know if that six-figure Bitcoin dream is realistic.
Well, the analysis we're looking at projects that Bitcoin could potentially hit $100,000 by 2025.
Whoa, $100,000. That's life-changing money for a lot of people. But let's be honest, how realistic is that projection?
It's important to remember that this is just a projection, not a guarantee.
Yeah.
Nobody has a crystal ball.
Right, of course. So what's driving this optimistic projection?
Well, the analysis points to a few key factors.
Yeah.
That institutional interest we talked about, the potential for clearer regulations, and a favorable macroeconomic environment. If all those stars align, it could create a very bullish scenario for Bitcoin.
Okay, and what about the rest of the crypto world? Would a Bitcoin surge lift all boats, or is this a solo mission?
Historically, we've seen a pattern called altcoin cascades.
Mm.
Basically, when Bitcoin's price goes up, other smaller cryptocurrencies often follow suit. So if Bitcoin hits six figures, it's likely that many altcoins will see gains as well.
That's good news for anyone holding a diversified crypto portfolio. But let's not forget the risks. This is still a volatile market.
Absolutely. Investors need to understand the risks involved and only invest what they can afford to lose. Diversification and careful risk management are crucial in this space.
So we've covered a lot of ground already. Potential government support, institutional adoption, global regulation, those juicy price predictions, and the ever-present volatility. But I think it's important to zoom out and look at the bigger picture.
I think you're right. We need to connect crypto to the broader economic trends happening in the world right now. Think about things like rising interest rates, unprecedented actions by central banks, and all the uncertainty in the global economy.
Yeah, it feels like the world is at a crossroads right now.
Exactly. And this uncertain environment might be pushing more investors towards crypto as an alternative asset. People are looking for safe havens, and crypto, with its decentralized nature and potential for growth, is starting to look very attractive.
That's a really fascinating point. But ultimately, the long-term success of crypto hinges on real-world applications, right? It can't just be about speculation and price movements.
Absolutely. We need to see genuine innovation in the crypto space. Things like decentralized finance or DeFi and blockchain-based services that provide tangible value to users.
So it sounds like it's a combination of factors: supportive regulations, institutional adoption, broader economic trends, and real-world innovation. If all those pieces fall into place, the future of crypto could be incredibly bright.
It's definitely an exciting time to be watching this all unfold. We're essentially witnessing the birth of a new financial system,
Hmm.
and nobody knows for sure how it will all play out.
It's enough to make your head spin. All right, let's take a breather and come back for part 2, where we'll unpack even more insights from this analysis and discuss what it all means for you.
Welcome back. You know, while it's easy to get caught up in all this Bitcoin hype, it's important to remember that we're still dealing with a relatively young asset class.
Yeah, it feels like it's been around forever with all the headlines. But you're right, Bitcoin's only been around for what, like 15 years?
About that, yeah. And like any emerging technology, there are bound to be some bumps in the road.
Oh, yeah.
We've already seen several of those classic boom and bust cycles in the crypto market.
Yeah, those can be pretty wild rides. Remember that time Bitcoin crashed, like way back when, and everyone thought it was game over?
Oh, yeah.
I definitely had a mini freak out.
It's certainly not for the faint of heart,
Yeah.
but for those who understand the fundamentals and are playing the long game, Those cycles can actually present some interesting opportunities.
So you're saying those dips in the market, those times when everyone's panicking, those could be buying opportunities.
Exactly. Remember that famous Warren Buffett quote? Be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we know when fear has really taken over and it's the right time to buy the dip? I don't know if I could time the market perfectly.
Yeah, there's no magic formula, unfortunately. It takes careful analysis, understanding market sentiment, and keeping a close eye on those macro trends we discussed earlier.
So it's a mix of art and science,
Exactly.
gut feeling, and cold, hard data.
But the key takeaway here is this. If you truly believe in the long-term potential of Bitcoin, those short-term price fluctuations shouldn't scare you away. In fact, they can create opportunities to accumulate more Bitcoin at a lower price, like a flash sale for the future of finance.
I like the way you think, but let's be honest, not everyone has that level of risk tolerance. Some people just want a nice, stable investment, even if the potential returns aren't as mind-blowing.
You're absolutely right, and that's perfectly fine. Investing in crypto isn't for everyone. It's a high-risk, high-reward asset class. You need to have a strong stomach and a clear understanding of what you're getting into.
So let's say someone's listening to this, intrigued by the possibilities, but also a little terrified. What advice would you give to someone dipping their toes into the crypto waters for the first time?
Well, the most important thing is to do your research.
Of-
Don't just blindly follow the hype or base your investments on what you see trending on social media. Take the time to understand the technology, the different types of cryptocurrencies out there, and the risks involved.
Knowledge is power.
Couldn't agree more. Once you've got a basic understanding, start small. Don't invest more than you can comfortably afford to lose.
Right.
Think of it as an experiment, a learning experience.
And don't forget about diversification.
Absolutely. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Mm.
Diversifying your investments across different cryptocurrencies helps reduce your overall risk. It's like that old saying, don't bet the farm on one horse.
Love that analogy. So start small, diversify, do your research.
Okay.
Got it. But what about the really long term? Where do you see Bitcoin and crypto as a whole going in the next 5, 10, even 20 years?
Now that's the million-dollar question.
Hmm.
And anyone who claims to have a definitive answer is probably not being entirely honest. The future of Bitcoin, just like any other emerging technology, is full of uncertainty.
Okay, fair enough. No crystal ball here. But surely we can make some educated guesses based on everything we've discussed.
Of course. If the trends we've been talking about continue, more institutional adoption, friendlier regulations, and growing global acceptance, it's not crazy to think that Bitcoin could become a major player in the global financial system.
So you're talking about a world where Bitcoin isn't just a speculative investment, but a legitimate currency used for everyday transactions like buying groceries or paying rent.
Exactly. And we're already seeing glimpses of this happening today. Big companies like Tesla and Microsoft accept Bitcoin as payment day. El Salvador even made it legal tender.
That's wild. But there are still a lot of hurdles, right? I keep hearing about scalability issues, transaction fees, and that whole debate about the environmental impact of Bitcoin mining.
You're right, those are all valid concerns. But the crypto community is constantly working on solutions.
Hmm.
For example, they've developed the Lightning Network to tackle those pesky scalability and transaction fee issues.
Okay, break that down for me. What is the Lightning Network and how does it work?
Imagine you're at a busy coffee shop and everyone's trying to pay with Bitcoin at the same time. It would be incredibly slow and expensive to process each transaction individually on the main Bitcoin blockchain. The Lightning Network is like a separate, faster lane where you can make small, instant transactions without clogging up the main blockchain.
So it's like a Bitcoin express lane.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the environmental impact? I've heard Bitcoin mining uses a ton of energy, which doesn't exactly scream sustainable future.
It's a legitimate concern. Bitcoin mining does require significant energy consumption, and we need to address that head on. However, there are some promising solutions being explored, like using renewable energy sources for mining and developing more energy-efficient mining algorithms.
It sounds like the future of Bitcoin and crypto in general is a mixed bag. There's massive potential, but some serious challenges to overcome.
That's a great way to put it. This is going to be a fascinating journey to watch unfold, and there's still so many questions to answer.
Speaking of journeys, I think it's time for us to take a quick break and gather our thoughts. When we come back, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the future of Bitcoin and explore what it all means for you. Okay, so we're back and ready to wrap up our Bitcoin deep dive. We've talked about the potential upsides, the risks, the global impact, and all the hurdles that Bitcoin still has to overcome. But now it's time to get down to brass tacks and figure out what this all really means for, the everyday person trying to make sense of all this.
You know what I find so interesting about this whole Bitcoin thing
What's that?
is how it really forces us to rethink what money even is.
Yeah.
Like for centuries, we've been told that money has to be controlled by governments and banks. These big centralized institutions.
It's just how it's always been right. You earn your money, you put it in a bank, and you hope it doesn't just disappear overnight.
Exactly. But Bitcoin kind of throws that whole model out the window. It's like saying, hey, maybe there's a different way to do this whole money
A
thing.
different way, yeah.
It's a decentralized digital currency that operates completely independently of any central authority. No government, no bank can tell it what to do.
It's like a digital rebellion against the powers that be.
Yeah, kind of.
It's almost like the internet of money, a whole new way to think about and interact with value.
That's a great way to put it.
Mm.
And just like the internet revolutionized how we communicate and share information, Bitcoin has the potential to completely reshape how we approach money.
But it's not just about the technology, right? It feels like there's this deeper philosophical element to it, this idea of freedom and individual empowerment.
Absolutely. Bitcoin puts the individual back in control of their finances. It allows people to transact directly with each other without needing those middlemen like banks that have traditionally held all the power.
And for people in countries with unstable currencies or, limited access to traditional banking,
Right.
Bitcoin can be a total game changer.
It's a lifeline for many people around the world.
It gives them a way to store and transfer value that's resistant to censorship, inflation, and government control. It's a powerful tool for financial inclusion and economic empowerment, especially in parts of the world that have been kind of left behind by the traditional system.
That's exactly it.
So this isn't just about some get-rich-quick scheme or a passing tech fad.
No.
It's about something much bigger. It's about building a more equitable financial system that works for everyone, regardless of where they live or their economic background.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's why I find this whole space so incredibly exciting. It's not just about, numbers and charts and making a quick buck. It's about using technology to create a better, fairer future for everyone.
That's a powerful vision. But let's not get too carried away with the utopian ideals. We also need to remember that there are still a lot of unanswered questions and potential pitfalls along the way.
Oh, for sure. As with any truly disruptive technology, there will be winners and losers, and the path forward won't be easy. The key is to stay informed, adapt to changing landscape, and make smart decisions based on your own individual circumstances and risk tolerance.
Wise words. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to turn it over to our listeners. What are your thoughts on the future of Bitcoin? Do you see it as this revolutionary force for good or just a risky gamble with an uncertain outcome? What do you think?
And more importantly, if Bitcoin does become a mainstream asset, how might that impact your personal financial decisions? Would you consider adding it to your investment portfolio? Would you be comfortable using it for everyday transactions? These are questions we're thinking about as we all navigate this uncharted territory together.
That's a great point to end on. The future of Bitcoin is still being written, and we all have a role to play in shaping that story. The best advice we can give is to stay curious, do your research, and make informed choices. That's how you navigate the exciting, volatile, and potentially transformative world of crypto. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.